How did one of Europe's strongest nations, fortified by years of preparation, fall to Germany's lightning-fast assault in just 6 weeks? World War II was a time of unprecedented chaos and conflict. But one of its most shocking moments was the rapid collapse of France in 1940. At the time, France stood as one of Europe's most powerful nations, with a vast military and fortified defenses. Yet the German invasion, fueled by a revolutionary strategy known as the Blitzkrieg, shattered these defenses and left Europe in disbelief. In this video, we'll uncover the German strategies, pivotal battles, and chain of events that led to France's fall. What made the Blitzkrieg so devastating? Could France have turned the tide? And what lessons did the world learn from this dramatic defeat? Stick with us as we unravel the story of the invasion of France during World War II. The roots of France's fall stretch back decades to the closing days of World War I. The Treaty of Versailles, signed in 1919, was meant to prevent future wars by weakening Germany. The treaty imposed harsh reparations, reduced the German military, and stripped away key territories. For France, it was an effort to neutralize its neighbor. But for Germany, it was a humiliation, a scar on its national pride. As the 1920s gave way to the 1930s, a global economic depression created fertile ground for the rise of Adolf Hitler. His fiery speeches resonated with a population desperate for a revival of national strength and dignity. By 1933, Hitler had risen to power, and his vision for Germany was clear. Rearmament, territorial expansion, and revenge for the perceived injustices of the post-World War I settlement. Meanwhile, France had its own scars to contend with. Still haunted by the horrors of trench warfare, the nation poured resources into defensive measures like the Maginot Line. This massive network of fortifications stretching along the border with Germany was an engineering marvel. It boasted underground railways, bunkers, and artillery placements, but it also reflected a static mindset, one that assumed the next war would look much like the last. In contrast, Germany defied the Treaty of Versailles by rebuilding its military. In 1936, Hitler made his first bold move by reoccupying the Rhineland, a demilitarized zone between Germany and France. France, despite its military strength, chose not to act, unwilling to risk war without British support. This inaction emboldened Hitler further, setting the stage for the aggressive expansion that would soon engulf Europe. With France focused on defense and Germany sharpening its offensive strategies, the pieces were now in place for one of the most dramatic campaigns in modern history. On May 10, 1940, Germany launched its invasion of France and the Low Countries under the codename Fall Gelb, or Case Yellow. But this wasn't a conventional assault. It was a calculated masterpiece of military strategy. The Blitzkrieg, or Lightning War, relied on speed, surprise, and coordination. German paratroopers descended on key bridges and fortifications in Belgium, sowing chaos among Allied forces. The French and British armies rushed northward, believing this was the main thrust of the attack. but it was all a ruse. The true German objective lay in the Ardennes forest, a dense and rugged region that French planners considered impassable for large-scale military operations. It was a fatal miscalculation. While Allied forces were distracted in the north, German tanks and infantry emerged from the Ardennes, crossed the river, and smashed through French defenses at Sedan. Imagine the chaos. French soldiers scrambling to respond as German tanks roared past their lines. Allied commanders, overwhelmed by the speed of the attack, struggled to organize a defense. In the skies, the Luftwaffe, the German Air Force, dominated, bombing key infrastructure and cutting off supply lines. At Dunkirk, over 330,000 Allied troops were trapped between advancing German forces and the sea. In a desperate bid to save their armies, the Allies launched Operation Dynamo. Civilians and soldiers alike boarded fishing boats, yachts, and merchant vessels to cross the English Channel. One soldier, Private Jacques Dupont, later recalled, "We didn't know if we'd make it home. Every moment felt like our last." Though the evacuation was a miraculous success, it came at a steep cost. Most of the Allied equipment was abandoned, and the army's morale was left in tatters. Germany now had the upper hand. With northern France effectively under German control, Hitler's forces launched Fall Rot, or Case Red, the final phase of the invasion, on June 5, 1940. The French army, demoralized and outmaneuvered, was no match for Germany's momentum. On June 10th, Italy declared war on France, opening a new front and sealing its fate. Just 4 days later, German forces entered Paris without encountering resistance. The sight of Nazi troops marching down the Champs-Élysées remains one of the most iconic and heartbreaking images of World War II. By June 22nd, the French government, led by Marshal Philippe Pétain, sought an armistice. It was signed in the very same railway carriage where Germany had surrendered in 1918. A deliberate and humiliating choice by Hitler. France was divided into two zones. The north and west were occupied by Germany, while the south became Vichy France, a puppet regime that collaborated with the Nazis. The fall of France sent shockwaves through the world. For Germany, it was a triumph that cemented its dominance in Europe. For the Allies, it was a harsh lesson in the importance of innovation and adaptability. Static defenses, like the Maginot Line, had no place in a world transformed by Blitzkrieg tactics. Despite its defeat, France's story didn't end there. The French resistance, composed of civilians, former soldiers, and exiled leaders like Charles de Gaulle, rose to fight back. They sabotaged German supply lines, gathered critical intelligence, and supported the Allied invasion of Normandy in 1944. Their bravery kept the dream of liberation alive. Globally, the events of 1940 shaped post-war strategies. The need for unity and innovation led to the formation of NATO and a renewed focus on collective defense. The invasion of France in 1940 was a defining moment in World War II, showing both the devastating power of modern warfare and the resilience of the human spirit. It's a reminder of how quickly fortunes can change in war and how critical it is to adapt to new challenges. If you enjoyed this exploration of history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join the conversation in the comments. The story of France's fall reminds us that history is full of lessons waiting to be uncovered. What untold stories from World War II should we cover next? Let us know below. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.